Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. My name is Blackjack. Welcome back to the channel. As always, we will be doing a YouTube comment section deck tech for you. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you, maybe give you some inspiration to fix up an old deck that you have collecting dust, or build something entirely new, I'm looking for any combination of the following metrics: a commander, any pet cards, a budget, and a theme, and I'd be happy to put something together for you and make a video of it. Today, we have a request by the user Ryan on YouTube who says, in regards of what to show, I'd love to see a deck around the theme of Phyrexian Obliterator, and that was it. So, I have built a Crick Son of Yawgmoth deck. This is a through and through just pile of mono black good stuff, including Phyrexian Obliterator. But obviously, if you guys don't know what the Obliterator is, it is a 4 black mana 5/5 trample. When a source deals damage to it, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. So there's a few different directions you can go with this, but at the end of the day, it is 4 black pips in the casting cost, so it's really hard to play any colors in addition. Plus, for better or worse, black is the color that gets to do everything in Commander. It gets to draw cards, it gets to ramp mana, it gets to attack for a lot of damage. It does everything almost as good as all the other colors, but on average better than every other color. So I would say mono black is probably by and large the best single color that you can pick when you're building a commander deck. But let's get started. So this is Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. If you don't know what he does, 4 colorless and then 3 Phyrexian black. Phyrexian black can be either paid with 2 life or a black mana. You're never going to pay black mana for it, so you're just going to pay on turn 4 or turn 3 or whatever turn you're casting Crick. You're going to pay the 4 colorless, and then you're going to pay 6 life. It has lifelink, and then it says for each black pip in a cost, you may pay 2 life rather than paying that mana. And when you cast a black spell, you get to put a 1/1 counter on Crick. So he does a very good job of making our stuff cheaper, as well as making himself more formidable, as well as gaining the life back that we're utilizing. We're going to be paying a lot of life to do stuff in this deck. It's important that we protect Crick and we have him out all the time in order to combat that life gain that we're paying. So, Planeswalkers, just Liliana of the Dark Realms. It's a good way to get card advantage over time in mono black. You're always just going to be plussing this to go get a swamp and put it in your hand so you have consistent card draw. There are going to be times where you do have to minus to deal with something on the board, but it can do both. Creatures, we have Bloodthirsty Conqueror, Flying Death Touch. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So again, we want to be gaining life wherever we can in this deck because we're going to be paying a lot of it to get this stuff out. You have to remember that when we're looking at all of our creatures, I want us, or any card in our deck, I want us to look through the lens of all of our black pips actually just being 2 life. So when I'm picking cards like Bloodthirsty Conqueror, I'm not seeing a 5 mana card, I'm seeing a 3 mana and 4 life card. When I'm looking at Braids, I'm not seeing a 3 mana card, I'm seeing a 1 colorless and 4 life card. So, Bloodthirsty Conqueror does a good job at gaining life. Braids is good consistent card draw as well as removal. Cryptghast doubles our swamps, and we can extort to gain a little bit of life. Dauthi Voidwalker does a good job of exiling other stuff, as well as being able to just play the best thing that your opponent has or has played so far. Dread Presence can either gain us life and deal damage, or it can draw cards. Gifted Aetherborn is just 4 life for a 2/3 Death Touch lifelink, which doesn't seem great, but for its rate does the job pretty well. It's a good blocker, it's a good attacker, and it's a good way to circumvent all of the life loss that we're going to be giving ourselves. Gray Merchant, Gary. When he enters, each opponent loses X and you gain X, where X is your devotion to black. This card is amazing. Kakusho. When it dies, each opponent loses 5 and you gain life equal to life lost this way. So it's going to be each opponent lose 5, you gain 15. Massacre Worm. It is a cool piece of removal in mono black. When it enters, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Murderous Rider is removal as well as turning into a lifelink creature. Nurkana Revenant doubles all of our swamps. Noxious Gearhulk is removal that also gains us life. The Obliterator, which is what they asked for. So this is actually going to cost, if we want it to, just 8 life. We're not going to actually have to pay any mana if our commander's out. Karsi Revenant is flying, Death Touch, lifelink, and then we can actually exile this card out of our graveyard to put a counter of those onto a creature. Reaver Demon looks expensive, but again, at the end of the day, this is just going to be 4 mana and 8 life, and it's just going to destroy all non-artifact, non-black creatures when it enters. Sangromancer is good life gain. Shard of the Nightbringer is when it enters, if you cast it, target opponent loses half their life. You gain life equal to what's lost this way. This is just going to cost 5 mana and 6 life. So if you can get this out relatively early and hit an opponent for 20 damage and gain 20, that's going to be pretty good for you. Shieldred, the Unreadable Apocalypse. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Just another incremental life gain card. Twilight Prophet is a way for us to gain life, drain people, and get consistent card draw. Agadeem's Awakening, it's expensive just financially, but if you have one for a mono black deck, it's great because it's an MDFC, so you can play it as a land, or you can use it later in the game as just a mass reanimation spell. Damnation is good removal as far as on a board wipe scale. Exsanguinate is another good way for people to lose life and us to gain life. Feed the Swarm is quite literally our only way of dealing with enchantments in this deck. Night's Whisper and Sign in Blood. Good, easy, consistent card draw. Sign in Blood, it could cost simply 6 life to draw 2 cards. Night's Whisper could be 1 colorless mana and 2 life, and then another 2 to draw 2. Reanimate, for its rate, it's just the best at what it does, getting something out of the graveyard. Temporal Extortion, I don't expect this spell to resolve, but making someone lose half their life is pretty funny, and for the cost of just 8 mana, why not? Or 8 life. Alesha's Legacy is a good way to protect our stuff. Cabal Ritual is a way for us to accelerate, as well as Dark Ritual. The faster we can get out Crick, the better, so we're going to use these to just cast Crick as soon as possible. Consuming Corruption is just a consistent way for us to deal damage and gain life. Deadly Rollick is free removal, as well as Snuff Out. Defile is removal that is essentially we could just pay 2 life to have a creature get -X, where X is the number of swamps. Fell the Profane as well as Malakir Rebirth are good at what they do. They're MDFCs that can enter as lands if they need to, and if not, can be a way to save your creatures / a way to destroy a creature. Victim of Night is just one of the better removal pieces in mono black. Sometimes you run into vampires or werewolves or zombies, but more often than not, this is going to find a target. We do have the combo of Aetherflux, Bolas's Citadel, and Sensei's Divining Top. So what you do with that is Bolas's Citadel says you can look at the top card of your library at any time and play it for its mana value against your life total. So if you cast Sensei's Divining Top, from the top of your library, it's going to cost you 1 life. But if you have Aetherflux out, it's going to give you incrementally more life for casting it. So the combo, if you have these 3 pieces out, is to tap the top to flip it and put it back on top, cast it, you pay a life to cast it, but you gain 1 with Aetherflux. Excuse me. You tap it to put it back on top again, cast it again, but this time you gain 2 life and you only pay 1. So you're casting basically an infinite number of spells from the top to gain an infinite number of life and be able to just shoot somebody for 50. Arcane Signet, Charcoal Diamond, Cold Steel Heart, Ever-Flowing Chalice, Felwar Stone, Jet Medallion, Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, Soul Ring, Star Compass, Thought Vessel. We have 11 total ramp pieces in this deck, and they're all at 2 mana in order to consistently get out Crick on turn 3 as often as we possibly can. We have Commander's Plate, which for what it does when you're playing a monocolor deck, it's just hard to argue. Giving your commander protection from every color that it's not, +3/+3 is awesome. Expedition Map is a way for us to try to consistently find one or the other of Cabal Coffers / Urborg. We have Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots to try to protect our Crick. We have Sensei's Divining Top, which we already talked about, but even if it's not comboing, it's a good card advantage, card selection piece. Bolas's Citadel is a great card advantage piece, and then Aetherflux is a good way for us to mitigate some of the life loss. So all of these cards on their own are still good for us, but in combination become, a combo. Whip of Erebos is another good way to give our stuff lifelink and be able to pull it out of the graveyard for another one-off effect. Animate Dead is another way for us to recur a creature out of our graveyard. We have Black Market Connections, Necropotence, Phyrexian Arena, and Necrodominance. These are all ways to get consistent card draw. We are going to be paying a lot of life in this deck, but don't be afraid to go low for it. You're going to gain it back with Crick over time, and you're going to use these spells to be drawing as much as you possibly can and be casting. This deck is all about it's a snowball effect in this deck. It's rolling downhill, and the faster that you can get it moving towards the beginning by getting a lot of cards in your hand to be able to build up Crick and start casting 2, 3, 4 spells a turn if you're lucky, that's when this deck's really going to be able to take over. Font of Agonies. Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on this, and then you can remove 4 to destroy a creature. Finally, the lands. So we have 36, but we have 39 including the MDFCs. I always count MDFCs as half a land, so I would say roughly we have like 37.5 lands here. Bajuka Bog, it's a good exile for a graveyard. We do have Cabal Coffers in combination with Urborg to try to generate a ton of mana. Cabal Stronghold, similar. Nykthos, similar. These are all ways to generate mana. We have Castle Lochthwain for card draw in the land area. Takenuma for getting stuff out of the graveyard, and then War Room also for consistent card draw. We top that off with Urza Saga, which you're always going to be finding. If you have Urborg or Cabal Coffers, you're going to be finding Expedition Map to get the other half. Otherwise, you're always just going to get Commander's Plate to protect your commander and start mitigating the life loss by making him bigger. But if you're also leaning towards the combo, you can also get your Sensei's Divining Top. So through and through, this is just a classic mono black good stuff deck. Pay a lot of life, get a lot of advantage, eventually just take over with creatures that are all individually must answer threats that are very powerful for us. and not good for our opponents. I think that this deck turned out pretty sweet. I'm not sure exactly what you were looking for when you asked for Phyrexian Obliterator, but when I think Phyrexian Obliterator, I think victory at any cost. I think don't be afraid to um, be a little bit scummy, making our opponents sacrifice permanence when this is dealt damage. Obviously, we're willing to lean into that. If you really wanted to take it to the next level, you could change up some cards and you could add Tegrid, which would be, I think it's is it Turgrid? So adding something like Turgrid or even making Turgrid the commander, I think would kind of bring this deck to a new power level, one that I wouldn't be very comfortable playing at my tables. But if you're playing Phyrexian Obliterator, you're probably not super worried about how you're going to make the table feel. So you could definitely go in this direction and play more of a make your opponents discard stuff. I decided not to go that route because, again, I think by and large, not many people are going to want to play with you if you're playing a game changer as a commander. But either way, I hope you enjoyed the deck. Please let me know how it goes in your games. And as always, Godspeed.